Imagine being thrown out of the only place you called home, with no hope and no one to turn to. That was Naomi's reality, until one day she met a billionaire who changed everything. But this is not just a story of rescue, it's a tale of betrayal, shocking secrets, and a love that no one saw coming. How did Naomi go from a poor maid to something much greater? Find out now. In a small town where news spread quickly, there lived a young woman named Naomi. She was an orphan, quiet, but hardworking. Naomi had only one thing in the world: a job at a small laundry shop where she washed, ironed, and folded clothes for people who barely noticed her. The shop was not just her workplace, it was her home. A small mat in the corner was where she slept every night, and a single cup and plate were all she owned. Yet, Naomi was grateful. "At least I have somewhere to stay," she often whispered to herself. One bright morning, Naomi sat on her mat, eating her small bowl of gari soaked in water. Her boss had just opened the shop, and the first customer of the day, a well-dressed woman wearing bright yellow lace, walked in. Naomi quickly wiped her hands on her dress and grabbed a cup of water to wash her face before starting her work. As she walked through the doorway, she didn't notice the woman stepping into the shop at the same time. They collided. "Hey, are you blind?" the woman shouted, staring at her dress, now drenched in water. Naomi's heart sank. "Ah, sorry, Ma. I didn't see you. Please, Ma, let me clean it." She reached out to touch the fabric. "Don't touch me," the woman snapped, stepping back. "Do you know how expensive this dress is, you this dirty girl?" Naomi lowered her head. "I'm very sorry, Ma. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" the woman barked. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the morning air. "Is that how you people work here? No manners, no training?" Before Naomi could say another word, the woman stormed past her and entered the small office where Naomi's boss sat. Naomi stood frozen, her hands trembling. She could hear the woman's angry voice. "Fire her," the woman shouted. "If this is the kind of person you employ, I'm taking my business elsewhere. I can't deal with such carelessness." Naomi's boss, a bald man with tired eyes, tried to calm her down. "Madam, please, it's not that serious. She's a good worker." "I don't care," the woman yelled. "If you don't sack her, I'm done with your shop. And don't forget, my fiancé is one of your biggest customers." The boss sighed heavily. He walked out of the office and called Naomi. She stepped forward, her heart pounding as if it would burst out of her chest. "Naomi," he said softly, avoiding her eyes. "I don't know how to say this. Please, sir, I didn't mean to—" "Naomi," he cut her off. "You've been a good worker, but I can't afford to lose a customer like her. I'm sorry, but you'll have to leave." Naomi dropped to her knees. "Ah, sir, please, don't do this. I have nowhere to go. This is where I live, where I eat. Please, sir, don't send me away." Her boss looked at her with pity, but he shook his head. "Naomi, I'm sorry. My hands are tied." The well-dressed woman stood at the doorway, smirking. "That will teach you to watch where you're going," she said before leaving with a loud "Humph." Naomi sat on the floor, tears streaming down her face. Her world had just crumbled. Where would she go? How would she survive? The day was just beginning, but for Naomi, it already felt like the end. Naomi sat on the floor of the laundry shop, her head buried in her hands. The tears wouldn't stop. She looked up at her boss one last time. "Sir, please. I don't have anywhere to go. I will work harder. I will wake up earlier. Please don't send me away," Naomi begged, her voice trembling. Her boss sighed deeply, rubbing his forehead. "Naomi, it's not about your hard work. You know I appreciate you, but that woman is my best customer. If I lose her, it will affect my business. I'm sorry. You have to leave." "But where will I go?" Naomi cried. "This is the only place I have. How will I eat? Please, sir, have mercy on me." "Naomi," he said, avoiding her teary eyes. "I've already made up my mind. You can't stay here anymore. Just pack your things." Naomi felt like her world was crashing. She looked around the tiny shop where she had spent the last 2 years. It wasn't much, but it had been her home. She had no family, no friends, and no money. That evening, with nothing but a small bag of her clothes, Naomi walked aimlessly through the streets. The sun had set, and the town was quiet except for the occasional sound of cars passing by. She felt invisible, like the world had forgotten she existed. As she wandered, she saw an uncompleted building. The walls were high, but there were no doors or windows yet. She peeped inside and saw a flat surface of cement blocks. It wasn't safe, but it was better than sleeping on the street. Naomi climbed inside, laid her bag on the cold floor, and sat down. "God, please help me," she whispered. She lay on the floor, using her wrapper as a blanket. The night was long and cold, but she stayed awake, her mind filled with thoughts of what tomorrow would bring. The next morning, the sound of voices woke Naomi. She sat up quickly, startled to see a group of men walking into the building, holding tools and wearing helmets. They stopped in their tracks when they saw her. "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" one of the men asked, his tone firm but not unkind. Naomi stood up, her hands shaking. "Please, sir, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to trespass. I lost my job, and I'm hoping to have the opportunity to work here. Please, I can work. Let me help with the construction. I'll do anything." The men exchanged glances, some of them shaking their heads. "This is not a job for women," one of them said. "It's hard work, lifting heavy blocks, mixing cement. Are you sure you can handle it?" "I can do it, sir," Naomi said, her voice firm. "I'm strong. Please, just give me a chance." The men hesitated, whispering among themselves. Finally, one of them said, "You have to talk to the boss. He'll be here soon." Naomi nodded. "Thank you, sir. I'll wait." She sat quietly in a corner of the building, watching as the workers began their tasks. The smell of cement filled the air, and the sound of hammers echoed around her. Naomi felt a small flicker of hope. After about an hour, a tall man in a white shirt and safety boots walked into the building. His face was strict, and he looked like someone who didn't take nonsense. The workers quickly gathered around him, explaining Naomi's situation. The man walked up to Naomi, his eyes scanning her from head to toe. "So, you want to work here?" he asked, his voice deep. "Yes, sir," Naomi said, standing straight. "I have no place to go, and I need to survive. I will do my best." The man raised an eyebrow. "This is not a place for playing. If you cannot handle it, you will leave. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir, I understand." "All right," he said after a long pause. "You can start tomorrow." Naomi's face lit up. "Thank you, sir. God bless you, sir." As the workers returned to their tasks, Naomi sat in the corner, tears streaming down her face. This time, not from sadness, but from a glimmer of hope. The next morning, Naomi started her first day on the site. The sun was hot, and the work was harder than she expected. She carried heavy blocks on her head, mixed cement with sand, and fetched water from a nearby tap. Her arms ached, and her legs felt weak, but she didn't stop. The workers watched her with surprise. "Ah, this girl is really strong," one of them said. Another laughed. "Honestly, she's even working better than some of the boys here." Naomi ignored their comments and kept working. She knew she had no choice. This was her second chance, and she couldn't afford to mess it up. A week later, the owner of the building, Mr. Francis, arrived unexpectedly. He was a well-dressed man with a calm but commanding presence. As he walked around the site, inspecting the work, he noticed something unusual. In the corner of the site, a young girl was carrying heavy blocks on her head. Her clothes were stained with cement, and sweat dripped down her face, but she didn't stop. "Who is that girl?" Mr. Francis asked the engineer, pointing at Naomi. The engineer hesitated, then replied, "Ah, sir, her name is Naomi. She has been working with us for about a week now." "Why is she doing this kind of work? This is not work for a young girl," Mr. Francis said, frowning. The engineer explained how Naomi had nowhere to go and had begged to be allowed to work. "She's very hard-working, sir. She doesn't complain, and she gets the job done." Mr. Francis shook his head. "This is not right. Call her here." The engineer nodded and waved Naomi over. She quickly wiped her face with the edge of her dress and walked to where they were standing. "Good morning, sir," Naomi said, bowing slightly. "Morning," Mr. Francis said, his voice kind but firm. "What's your name?" "Naomi, sir." "Naomi, why are you doing this kind of work? Don't you know it's dangerous and too hard for someone like you?" Naomi lowered her head. Sir, I have no other choice. I need to survive. Please, sir, don't send me away. I'll do anything to keep this job. Mr. Francis sighed deeply. This is not the kind of life a young girl like you should live. You can't continue here. I'll speak to the engineer. You have to stop this work. Naomi's heart sank. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at Mr. Francis, hoping he would change his mind. The sun was setting when the engineer called Naomi aside. His face looked heavy, and Naomi's heart sank even before he spoke. Naomi, he began slowly. Mr. Francis said you can't continue working here. He said it's for your own good. You are too young to be carrying this kind of load. Naomi's chest tightened. Sir, please, I have nowhere to go. I'll work harder, I promise. I don't even mind sleeping here. The engineer shook his head. It's not my decision. You have to leave. I'm sorry. You know what they say? Every disappointment is a blessing. I believe God will grant you a better opportunity. Tears spilled from Naomi's eyes as she packed her few belongings and moved to another uncompleted building. That night, as she lay on the cold cement floor, Naomi felt more alone than ever. She hugged herself, shivering in the night air. God, why me? She whispered, her voice shaking. What did I do to deserve this? But no answer came. Meanwhile, Mr. Francis went to the laundry to collect his freshly cleaned clothes. The owner greeted him warmly. Good evening, sir. Welcome. Good evening, Mr. Francis replied as he handed over his receipt. While waiting for his clothes, he glanced around the shop, his thoughts drifting back to Naomi. Something about her had stayed with him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that she needed help. Excuse me, he said to the owner. Do you know a girl named Naomi? She used to work here. The owner's cheerful expression faded. Naomi? She had a problem with one of our customers. The woman wasn't happy and demanded I sack her. It was your fiancé, Chinny, that said she must go. Mr. Francis blinked in surprise. Chinny? Are you sure? Yes, sir. She was very upset that Naomi spilled water on her clothes. She even threatened to stop bringing her laundry here if I didn't fire the girl. Francis was quiet for a moment. Do you know where Naomi is now? The owner shook his head. No idea, sir. She just left like that. I don't think she had anywhere to go. Francis thanked the owner and collected his clothes, but his mind was troubled. Why would Chinny go so far as to get a girl fired over something so small? And where was Naomi now? As he drove home that evening, Francis couldn't help but feel a deep sense of guilt. He knew he had to find Naomi, no matter how long it took. A few days later, Naomi was walking along the roadside, her slippers barely protecting her feet from the rough ground. She wrapped her arms around herself, hoping to find some warmth. The road was quiet, except for the occasional car speeding past. Suddenly, bright headlights lit up the path ahead, and a black SUV slowed down beside her. The window rolled down, and a familiar voice called out, Naomi! She froze, straining to see who it was. It was Mr. Francis. Sir? Naomi's voice was shaky, unsure if she should run or stay. What are you doing here at this time of night? Francis asked, his voice full of concern. I don't have anywhere to go, she admitted quietly, staring at the ground. Francis frowned. Get in the car. Naomi hesitated. Sir, I don't want to disturb you. You're not disturbing me. I can't leave you here like this. Please, enter. After a moment, Naomi climbed into the car. As they drove, Francis asked her questions about her life. She told him about the laundry job, the uncompleted building, and how she had been trying to survive. Francis sighed deeply. You're too young to be going through all this. You'll come to my house. I'll find work for you there. Naomi's eyes widened. Your house? But sir, No buts, Francis interrupted. You need help, and I can help. Don't worry. Naomi finally nodded. Thank you, sir. God bless you. When they arrived at Francis's house, it was already late. The mansion was well lit, with large windows and a neatly trimmed garden. Naomi couldn't believe her eyes. As they stepped inside, Chinny appeared from the living room, her eyes narrowing when she saw Naomi. Who is this? Chinny demanded, her tone sharp. Francis remained calm. Her name is Naomi. She'll be staying here. What? Chinny's voice rose. This dirty girl? In my house? Are you serious, Francis? Yes, I am, he replied firmly. She needs help, and I've decided to help her. That's final. Chiny threw her hands in the air. Francis, have you lost your mind? Do you know what people will say if they see her here? I don't care what people say, Francis said, his voice steady. Naomi is staying. She'll work here and have a place to sleep. Chiny glared at Naomi, who stood silently, feeling like an intruder. This is not your decision alone, Francis. It is now, Francis said. She'll be staying in the guest room. Mr. Francis then showed Naomi to her room. The bed looked soft, and there was even a small window with curtains. Naomi sat down slowly, her heart pounding. As she lay down that night, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Chiny's anger had been loud and clear, and Naomi knew that her troubles might not be over yet. From the moment Naomi started working in the house, Chiny treated her like a pest. Every little thing Naomi did seemed to annoy her. Is this how you sweep? Look at the corners. Chiny snapped one morning, pointing at an already spotless floor. I'm sorry, Ma, Naomi said quietly, grabbing the broom to sweep again. Sorry for yourself, Chiny hissed, walking away with a frown. It wasn't just the harsh words. Chiny made sure Naomi felt unwelcome in every way. She refused to let Naomi eat most of the time, saying, This house is not a free-for-all. If you're hungry, manage whatever you brought from outside. One night, Francis came home earlier than usual and found Naomi sitting by herself in the kitchen, staring at an empty plate. Naomi, have you eaten? He asked. Naomi hesitated, then shook her head. No, sir. Why not? There's food in this house. Naomi lowered her gaze. Madam said I shouldn't eat. Francis's eyes darkened. He stormed into the living room, where Chiny was scrolling through her phone. Why are you starving her? He demanded. Chiny didn't even look up. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't pretend, Francis said firmly. Naomi is here to work, not to suffer. Go and serve her food now. Chiny laughed bitterly. You're making this girl too comfortable, Francis. But fine, if that's what you want. Moments later, Chiny placed a bowl of watery soup and a tiny piece of yam in front of Naomi. Here, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Enjoy. Naomi's hands trembled as she picked up the spoon. She couldn't stop the tears rolling down her cheeks. Thank you, Ma, she whispered, her voice breaking. Chiny smiled mockingly and walked away, leaving Naomi to cry silently into her meal. Despite everything, Naomi remained kind. She kept doing her chores quietly, avoiding trouble where she could. One day, Francis came back home after a long day at work. The house was quiet, and Chiny was nowhere to be found. He tried calling her, but she didn't answer. Then he remembered she had told him a few days ago that she had a party to attend. Maybe she's still at the party, Francis thought as he went to his room. It was very late, almost midnight, when Chiny returned home. The loud bang of the door woke Naomi. Chiny was staggering, her makeup was all over her face, and her clothes smelled of alcohol. She barely made it into the house before she bent over and started vomiting in the living room. Naomi quickly rushed out of her room. Madam, are you okay? She asked, worried. Chiny just waved her hand weakly and slumped onto the floor. Without saying anything else, Naomi grabbed a mop and cleaned up the mess. Then she helped Chiny to her feet. Let me take you to bed, madam, Naomi said softly, though it wasn't easy carrying Chiny, who was leaning so heavily on her. Naomi finally got her to the bed and noticed something was wrong. Chiny's body felt very hot. Ah, she has a fever, Naomi whispered. She quickly went to the kitchen, brought a bowl of cold water, and began dabbing Chiny's forehead with a cloth. After some time, Chiny woke up, but instead of thanking Naomi, she looked at her with anger. What are you doing? Why are you touching me? Chiny shouted. Madam, you were not feeling well. I was just trying to help you, Naomi explained, still holding the wet cloth. With your dirty hands? How dare you touch my skin? Chiny yelled. She grabbed the bowl of water and emptied it on Naomi's head, drenching her clothes. Naomi stood there shocked, her eyes filling with tears. I was only trying to help, she said quietly. Just then, Francis walked into the room. He looked at the water on the floor, Naomi standing soaked, and Chiny yelling. What is going on here? Francis asked, frowning. Chiny pointed at Naomi. She thinks she can touch me with her filthy hands. Francis turned to Chiny, his voice firm. Do you even hear yourself? You came back home like this, drunk, vomiting, and instead of thanking her for taking care of you, you're insulting her? How can you be so heartless, Chinny? Chinny tried to say something, but Francis cut her off. Enough. I don't want to hear anything from you. He walked over to Naomi and gently took her hand. Come with me, he said. He led Naomi to the living room, handed her a towel to dry herself, and sat next to her. Don't let her words hurt you, Francis said kindly. You have a good heart, Naomi. You didn't deserve that. Naomi wiped her tears. I was only trying to help, sir. I didn't mean to make her angry. Francis looked at her and smiled softly. You did nothing wrong. You're better than her in so many ways. As they sat there, something warm and unspoken passed between them. Francis couldn't stop thinking about Naomi's kindness, and Naomi felt safe in his presence. It was a moment neither of them would forget. Francis had always been a busy man, so he rarely paid attention to small details at home. But lately, something had changed. Every evening when he came home tired, Naomi would meet him at the door with a warm smile. Welcome, sir. How was your day? She would ask gently. At first, Francis only gave short answers. It was fine, or busy as usual. But Naomi's genuine interest made him pause one evening. It was stressful, honestly, he admitted. Too many meetings. Naomi nodded with understanding. Sorry, sir, you've been working hard. Would you like me to make you some tea? Francis blinked. It was such a simple gesture, but it touched him deeply. Yes, please, that would be nice. As Naomi disappeared into the kitchen, Francis couldn't help but think about her. She was always so calm and respectful, even when Chinny was harsh. Unlike Chinny, who rarely asked about his day or showed concern, all she does is demand money to fund her frivolous lifestyle. But Naomi's kindness stood out. Over the next few days, Francis started noticing more. How Naomi would quietly tidy up without being told. How she greeted everyone with a smile. How she seemed to carry a lightness that made the house feel warmer, even with Chinny's constant grumbling. One evening, as Chinny complained loudly about something unimportant, Francis found himself tuning her out and glancing at Naomi, who was folding clothes in the corner. He frowned, realizing he was beginning to compare the two women. Francis decided to do something thoughtful. After work, he stopped at a boutique and picked out dresses, some for Chinny and one for Naomi. When he got home, he handed the bags to each of them. Chinny grabbed hers with a frown. What's this? She asked, frowning at the bag. A little something for you, Francis replied simply. Chinny barely looked at the dress before tossing it on the couch. Thanks, I guess. Naomi, on the other hand, stared at the bag in disbelief. For me, sir? Yes, Naomi. Open it, Francis encouraged. With trembling hands, Naomi pulled out a simple yet beautiful dress. Her eyes filled with tears as she clutched it to her chest. Thank you, sir, she said, her voice shaking. Nobody has ever given me a gift before. Francis smiled. You deserve it, Naomi. You've been working so hard. Chinny, who had been watching from the corner, suddenly exploded. What is all this nonsense? She yelled. Why are you buying gifts for her? Are you trying to embarrass me in this house? Francis turned to her calmly. Chinny, it's just a dress. Why are you making it a big deal? Chinny scoffed. A dress, right? I can see what's going on here. You're beginning to favor her over me, right? Be careful, Francis. Naomi stepped back, clutching the dress tightly. I'm sorry if I caused any problem, Ma, she said softly. Keep quiet, Chinny snapped, pointing a finger at Naomi. You think you're smart, eh? I'm watching you. Francis sighed heavily, rubbing his forehead. Chinny, stop this drama. Naomi is part of this household, and I'll treat her with respect. If you can't handle that, maybe you should rethink your attitude. Chinny stormed off, slamming the door behind her, while Naomi stood frozen, tears of joy streaming down her face. The next morning, as Francis left for work, the house grew quiet. Naomi was in the kitchen when she heard Chinny's footsteps behind her. She turned around, but before Naomi could say anything, Chinny's angry voice cut through the air. You think you can just walk in here and take my man away from me? Chinny shouted. Her eyes were filled with fury. You're nothing but a dirty girl trying to steal what doesn't belong to her. Naomi took a step back, her heart racing. Madam, Shut up, Chinny shouted, stepping closer. You don't know your place. You think because he bought you a stupid dress you're special? Well, you're not. Before Naomi could respond, Chinny stormed into the room where the dress Frances had bought for Naomi was hanging. With a cruel smile, she grabbed the dress and marched outside. Naomi followed, her voice shaking. Please, madam, don't. That dress means so much to me. Shut your mouth, Chinny interrupted, holding the dress up to the fire. This is what happens when you try to take what's mine. Naomi's eyes widened as she watched the flames consume the dress. She couldn't move, her tears falling freely. Please, don't do this, she pleaded, but Chinny was relentless. You'll never be good enough for him. I'll make sure of that, Chinny sneered. When the dress was completely burned, Chinny turned and walked away, leaving Naomi standing there, sobbing. Naomi didn't know what to do or where to go. She had nothing left. A week later, Francis was getting ready to leave for the building site when he saw Naomi in the yard. He smiled at her and asked, Naomi, would you like to visit the building site today? Some of your old colleagues from the construction site are there. I'm sure they'll be happy to see you again. Naomi's face lit up. She had always been grateful to the workers at the site. They had been kind to her, helping her when she needed it most. Seeing them again would be a great way to show her appreciation. Yes, sir, I'd love to, Naomi replied, her heart racing with excitement. Francis smiled and walked toward the car, waiting for Naomi to come out. Naomi quickly ran inside to get ready. She had to look her best for the reunion, but when she finally stepped out, Francis's smile faded. He looked at her in surprise. Naomi, why are you wearing that old dress? Naomi froze. Her heart dropped. She couldn't tell him the truth. Not yet. Not when Chinny had threatened her so much. I'm saving the new dress for a special occasion, she said quietly, avoiding his gaze. Chinny was standing in the corner watching them. Her eyes were sharp, warning Naomi not to speak. She made a small gesture with her eyes. If you tell him anything, I'll make you regret it. Naomi hesitated. She didn't want to disappoint Francis, but she also didn't want to anger Chinny. She looked back at Chinny, who was glaring at her. Francis saw the hesitation in Naomi's eyes. He raised his voice. Naomi, what is wrong with you? Get in the car. We're leaving now. Naomi stood still, unsure what to do. Chinny was still watching and Naomi was scared. But then Francis noticed Chinny standing in the corner with her eyes filled with hostility. He understood what was going on. Naomi, Francis shouted again. Get in the car. I said now. With a sigh, Naomi walked toward the car. She didn't want to make things worse, so she climbed into the car and sat down. Let's go, Francis said to Naomi. As the car drove off, Naomi looked back at Chinny, who was still staring at them angrily. Naomi didn't know what was coming next, but she knew one thing for sure. Chinny was not going to stop until she had pushed Naomi out of the picture for good. One afternoon, Chinny called Naomi to the living room. Naomi, come here. Sit down, let's talk, she said in a calm, almost sweet voice. Naomi was surprised. Chinny had never allowed her to sit on the couch before. She hesitated for a moment, but then walked over and sat down carefully. Don't be scared, Chinny said, gesturing for her to relax. Let's just talk. Naomi sat on the couch, still unsure of what was going on. Chinny's voice softened as she began to speak. I know I've been hard on you ever since you came into this house. I've said things I shouldn't have, and I've treated you badly. But today, I want to make amends, Chinny said, looking Naomi straight in the eye. I want to treat you like my younger sister from now on. Please forgive me for all my past mistakes. Naomi blinked, confused, but then smiled lightly. Ma, I don't hold any grudges. We're good. Thanks for letting me stay in your home, she said, trying to match Chinny's tone. For a moment it seemed like the tension had lifted. Chinny smiled back and there was a warmth in her eyes that Naomi hadn't seen before. Can I ask you for a favor? She asked, her voice gentle. Anything, Ma? Naomi replied, eager to keep the peace. Chinny smiled. I'm not good at cooking. Can you make some noodles for me? Naomi's face lit up. She was happy to do something for Chinny, especially since things seemed to be improving. Of course, I'll make it right away. She hurried to the kitchen and cooked the noodles, bringing a bowl to Chinny when it was ready. Chinny looked pleased as Naomi set the bowl in front of her. Then Naomi excused herself and went to her room, thinking everything was fine. A few seconds later, she heard Chinny's voice shouting from the living room. Naomi's heart skipped a beat as she rushed out to see what had happened. Madam, what happened? Naomi asked, her voice trembling. Chini was standing, her face twisted in anger. So you want to poison me? She yelled. What did I ever do to you? Naomi's mouth fell open in shock. Madam, I didn't put anything into your food. Please, believe me, she said, trying to stay calm. Chini pointed an accusing finger at Naomi, tears streaming down her face. I saw you with my own 2 eyes. You put something in my food. This wicked girl wants to take my life, she cried out, looking at Francis as he walked into the room. Francis was confused, looking between the 2 women. What's going on here? He asked, his voice tense. Chini cried louder, pointing at Naomi. Look at her. She's the one. She's trying to poison me, she shouted, practically wailing. Naomi stepped forward, trying to explain herself. Madam, I swear, I didn't put anything in your food. I was just trying to help. But Chini wasn't listening. She continued to shout, her eyes wide with fake fear. She's lying, Francis. She's poisoned my food. Naomi, desperate to prove her innocence, couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed the bowl of noodles that Chini had barely touched, and without a second thought, ate a large spoonful in front of them. There. You see? Naomi said, swallowing the noodles. There's nothing in your food. I didn't poison you. But before she could finish speaking, Naomi felt a sharp pain in her stomach. She doubled over, clutching her belly as the room spun around her. Naomi! Francis shouted, rushing toward her as she fell to her knees, gasping for air. What's happening? Are you okay? Naomi screamed in pain, her vision blurring. I don't know. It hurts, she cried, tears streaming down her face. Chini stood at the side, watching Naomi in silence. Then a wicked smile appeared on her face, and she started to laugh. I told you, Francis, she said, almost happy. I saw her with my own eyes. She poisoned the food. Francis was in a panic. He turned to Naomi, who was now lying on the floor, clutching her stomach, her breathing shallow. Naomi, he shouted. Hold on, I'm taking you to the hospital. He scooped Naomi up in his arms and rushed out of the house, his mind racing. He couldn't believe what was happening. What had Chini done? Was this all a trick? Naomi slowly opened her eyes in the hospital bed. The soft beeping of the machines was the first thing she heard. Francis was sitting beside her, holding her hand tightly. His face was filled with worry, but when he saw her awake, his eyes softened with relief. Naomi, you're awake. Thank God, he said, his voice shaky. Naomi tried to smile but was still weak. What happened? She asked quietly, her voice barely a whisper. You collapsed after eating the noodles, Francis explained. But you're okay now. The doctor said you're going to be fine. Naomi closed her eyes again, remembering the pain and how Chini had accused her. She felt tears welling up inside, but she didn't say anything. Francis looked at her with serious eyes. Naomi, I have to tell you something. He paused. I checked the living room cameras. Chini did something terrible. She set you up. Naomi looked at him in shock. What do you mean, sir? Chini. She put something in that food to make it look like you were poisoning her, Francis said, his voice growing harder with each word. I saw it all on the footage. She's the one who did this. Naomi stared at him, stunned. But why? What did I do to deserve this? Francis looked down, his heart heavy. I don't know, but I will make sure she pays for what she did. With that, he stood up and left the room, his mind set on confronting Chini. When he got home, he didn't hold back. He walked into the living room where Chini was seated. Pack your things and leave my house, Francis said. What's going on? Chini asked. Don't pretend you don't know, Francis replied. There's a camera in this living room and I've seen everything. If I call the police, you'll be in big trouble, so just leave. With that, Francis turned and walked away, leaving Chini standing there trembling. She knew there was no way out now. Ashamed, she quietly gathered her things and left, her head hanging low. Days passed, and Naomi slowly regained her strength. She was back in the house, resting in the room that Francis had prepared for her. Francis came to her one afternoon, sitting by her side with a smile on his face. Naomi, he said gently, I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate you. You didn't deserve any of this. You're a good person, and I want to make things right. Naomi looked at him, still not fully understanding what was happening. "I'm just glad I'm okay," she replied softly. "You are more than okay," Francis continued. "I've been thinking a lot about your future. You told me you wanted to go back to school, right?" Naomi nodded slowly, unsure of where he was going with this. Francis smiled, his eyes shining with kindness. "I've already spoken to the right people, and I've made sure you're enrolled again. I'll help you with the fees. Whatever you need, I'll be here to support you. This is your chance to chase your dreams." Naomi's eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Of course I am," he said, his voice firm but warm. "You deserve every opportunity, Naomi. I believe in you." Tears filled Naomi's eyes as she looked at him, feeling overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you, sir. You don't know how much this means to me." "You don't have to thank me," Francis said, his voice filled with sincerity. "You're family now, and family takes care of each other." Naomi smiled, feeling a warmth she had never felt before. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she had a real chance at a future where she could finally be free of fear and doubt. And with Francis by her side, Naomi knew she could do anything. She wasn't alone anymore. One evening, Francis sat in the living room, lost in thought. Naomi walked in to ask if he needed anything. Her simple smile and gentle voice always had a way of calming him. "Naomi," he said, looking up at her. "Yes, sir," she replied, standing respectfully, her hands clasped in front of her. "Come and sit," Francis said, patting the seat beside him. Naomi hesitated but eventually sat down. For a moment he didn't say anything, just looking at her. Then he spoke, his voice soft but firm. "Naomi, you've been through so much, yet you're always kind. You never complain. Your humility, your strength, it amazes me." Naomi blinked, surprised. "Sir, I'm just doing my best." "No, it's more than that," Francis said, his eyes meeting hers. "You've changed my life in ways I didn't expect. And I think I've fallen in love with you." Naomi's eyes widened. She was speechless. "I know it's sudden," Francis continued, "but my heart has never been this sure about anything." "Sir," Naomi started, her voice trembling. "You're a big man. I'm just—" "Don't say that," Francis interrupted gently. "It's not about where you're coming from. It's about who you are. And you, Naomi, are extraordinary." Naomi looked down, her heart racing. She didn't know what to say. "Take your time," Francis said. "But I just wanted you to know how I feel." A few months later, Francis called Naomi into the living room. This time he wasn't sitting. He was standing, dressed neatly, holding a small velvet box in his hand. "Naomi," he began as she walked in, her heart pounding, "I've made up my mind. I want you to be my wife." Naomi gasped. "Sir, are you sure?" Francis smiled. "I've never been surer about anything in my life. You're everything I've been looking for." Tears filled Naomi's eyes as she looked at him. "But I don't know how to be a wife. I don't know how to live like you." "We'll learn together," Francis said, taking her hands in his. "All I need is you by my side." Naomi nodded slowly, her heart overwhelmed with joy and disbelief. "Yes, sir, I'll marry you." Francis laughed, pulling her into a hug. "No more, sir. Call me Francis." Their wedding was small but beautiful. Close friends and family gathered to celebrate the unlikely love story. Naomi wore a simple white dress, and Francis couldn't take his eyes off her. As they exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. It was a story of hope, love, and redemption. Naomi's life changed forever. From a homeless girl on the streets to the cherished wife of a kind man, her journey was proof that kindness and perseverance could lead to unexpected blessings. Francis kept his promise to support Naomi's dreams. She went back to school and later started a foundation to help young girls in need. This story teaches us that life can take unexpected turns, and no matter how tough things get, kindness, humility, and perseverance will always shine through. It reminds us never to judge people by their situation, but by the goodness of their hearts. True love isn't about wealth, status, or appearance. It's about seeing the beauty in someone's soul and standing by them no matter what. To my amazing audience, what did you learn from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up to let me know. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss the next interesting upload. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in my next story.